We're going to start in just a minute or two. It usually takes a few minutes for people to roll in. Welcome to Monday Night Reading. I recognize most faces, but at the same time, we love to hear where everybody is located. So if you would put in the chat where you are today, that would be fantastic. I'm in New York, in case you're wondering.
I'm in Virginia, California.
We've got Massachusetts, Texas, Ontario, more Texas, Georgia, Virginia, LA, Minnesota. I know I missed one. Birmingham. If you're just arriving, let us know where you're beaming in from. Nevada, San Diego, Asheville, California. Yay. I'd love to see all those different places. So Monday Night Reading will start in just a minute or two. Because this is a once a month event, we sometimes get little stragglers and so forth that start to roll in. But I'll start to tell you about why you're here. Monday Night Reading was inspired by the fact that I have my experience in fiction and nonfiction. And I realized maybe it was a couple years ago that nonfiction authors were not getting the same opportunity to have readings of their work, especially during promo. You almost never hear of it. And so I said, you know what, let's showcase these nonfiction authors. And that became Monday Night Reading. It's the first Monday of the month. And we are so proud of the authors who come to share. Sometimes it's authors who have a work in progress. Tonight, it's an author who has a book coming out tomorrow. We love it when we are part of an author's launch sequence because we feel so special about that. We know that you have a lot of things you could be doing right now, Julie Harris, but that you would do Monday Night Reading is a real gift to us. Monday Night Reading goes like this, where we do 1 hour, we don't run over. We talk about the author's book. The author reads from their book. We have a little more chit chat, a little more reading, a little more chit chat, and then we're done for the evening. But what's magical about it is getting to hear the author in their own words read from their book passages that I think are remarkable, that they put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into, a lot of heart, but also to talk about why their book matters and why they wrote it. You also have an opportunity to ask questions in the chat if that's something you want to do. We also want to point out that this is a time for you to share what resonates with you when you listen to the reading. You'll see some top 3 book workshop authors here who will model that for you, putting in the chat what resonates with them, and you can just follow suit for sure. Because we give the author the chat, everybody. We give it as a little present to see all of the fabulous praise that they receive. So tonight we're welcoming Julie Harris, author of Profit First for Therapists. And before y'all got here, Julie told me some of her results so far of her sales numbers. And I just have to say, Julie's in the top 5% of authors in terms of success rates already, and the book comes out tomorrow. So beyond that, though, what I've always loved about Julie from day one is her heart, how she cares so much about her readers. And even though it required a lot of extra time and a lot of early mornings and a lot of late nights and a lot of drafts, so many drafts, you just don't even count anymore. She stuck with it because she cares so much. I'm going to let Laura Stone, who is our Dean of Students at Top 3 Book Workshop, introduce Julie.
With my pleasure. Julie Harris is the founder and CEO of GreenOak Accounting, a firm that exclusively serves therapists, psychologists, and counselors in private practice across the United States. Over the years, Julie and her team have worked with hundreds of private practice owners and developed serious knowledge about what makes a practice financially successful. GreenOak's goal is to help practice owners feel comfortable with the financial side of their businesses and have profitable practices. Julie is an accountant and an enrolled agent in EA. She is also a speaker and the host of the fantastic podcast that I listen to all day today, Therapy for Your Money. And as of 5 p.m. Central, is now a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And I'll send you the screenshot, Julie. Congratulations.
Oh, yay.
And I'll put ways to connect her in the chat.
Did you not know that, Julie?
No, I didn't know today. I saw it pop up last week, but I didn't see it today. Yay.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank
It's
you.
fun to see that in real time. Okay. So, I always ask the same questions, and I ask this throughout your whole author journey, but now you're about to be a published author. So tell us who you wrote this book for and what is your main message?
My reader is a therapist that's in private practice, so all stages of private practice. And my core message is that your clients need your practice to be profitable. And to be profitable, you must take your profit first. And AJ, I remember I worded it that way specifically because sometimes my clients aren't willing to do it for themselves. So they're going to do it for their clients.
Yes, that's the hard work you did in differentiating your book from the original book, Profit First. And what is your promise to readers?
By the end of this book, you will have the tools and systems to have a profitable practice.
Love it. Simple, clear, and you definitely deliver on the promise. So set up this first excerpt for us.
So this is the beginning of chapter 1. So you've had the foreword, the intro already. So we start kind of right in the thick of all the emotions around profit and what a lot of practice owners go through.
All right, Julie, you're up.
All right. I can't make payroll tomorrow. I don't have enough money, Stacy said. I could hear the distress in her voice, the fear for her team members, her family, and herself. For the last few years, she had been keeping her business going by seeing 35 clients each week, sometimes more, without taking more than a day off here or there. Her teenage son had just entered an outpatient rehab program, which meant Stacy was seeing less clients than usual, and her community outreach efforts had fallen by the wayside. She had a hand in everything in her practice. Intakes were down, billing was irregular, and insurance payments had all but come to a grinding halt. Her team was trying to pick up the slack with a patchwork of marketing efforts, which meant that payroll was through the roof and there wasn't enough money to cover it. Stacy had been growing her business steadily with the hope that it would provide for her should she ever need to step away temporarily. In that moment, the whole thing felt like a house of cards about to collapse. All this time seeing as many clients as she possibly could each week and nothing to show for it. She was scared, but also mad at herself. Stacy isn't the only therapist I've met who is willing to put everyone else's needs ahead of her own. Caitlin was exhausted. She had just admitted to me that she had been handling intake calls from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week for the last 4 months. Her group practice had 8 clinicians, a gross income of close to $1 million per year. And yet, she couldn't afford to hire an intake coordinator to handle the constant calls. Julie, I just don't think I can keep doing this, she said. There's so much need in the community. People are hurting. I want to help them, but I can't keep going at this pace. How is it possible that I'm working this hard and I still can't afford to hire someone to help me answer calls? Caitlin had been so busy taking care of her clients and her team that she hadn't looked at the financial health of her practice in months. Everyone who goes into counseling is in it for the money, said no counselor ever. It's so common for therapists to want to take care of everyone else first, their clients, their team, their community, that I sometimes have to convince them that their practice can and should be profitable. Money isn't good or bad. It amplifies who we are inside. I truly believe that you are on this earth to share your gift with the world. To fulfill your life's mission, you will need money. I want you to have a profitable business so that you can go into the world and do the good you were intended to do. We're playing the long game, and I don't want you to run out of cash, okay? Your practice must serve you. You probably started your business thinking that if you go out and serve your community, do good work, then the money will follow. That's partly true. What's not automatic is profit. You must build a business that serves you. Yes, you will also take care of your clients and your team, but you need to take care of yourself. If you don't know where the money is going in your business, then you can't do that. It's cliche, but this is a lot like the emergency video on an airplane. The bored airline attendant tells you that in case of emergency, you should put your own oxygen mask on first, before you help children or anyone else around you. The same applies here. If you're burnt out or if your business doesn't survive, you can't help anyone. My goal is for your practice to be profitable so you can help as many people as possible. Your clients need your practice to be profitable so they can have the very best version of you in the therapy room, not the version that's worried about money. Reality check. Profit is not an event. It's not something that will happen when you finally hire another therapist or when your revenue hits a certain milestone. Profit happens on purpose with every session and every clinician in your practice. One of the biggest frustrations I have with my profession is when fellow accountants tell their clients they have too much profit. That phrase is usually followed by a recommendation to go buy stuff the business owner doesn't need to reduce the tax liability. Is there really such a thing as too much profit? There may be more than you had planned on, and that's something to celebrate, not hide. Profit allows you to have an even bigger impact on the community. The work that you do in the therapy room is so important. I am not a therapist, so I won't pretend to understand how you do what you do. Just know that I'm constantly in awe about how mental health professionals help soften the hard edges of life. When your practice is profitable, you will make a good living providing a valuable service to your clients. With each session, you help reduce the stigma around mental health and therapy. Profit will also allow you to donate money or time to causes that are dear to you to keep amplifying the impact of your practice. Therapist guilt. So why do so many therapists struggle with the financial side of their practice? Therapist guilt is definitely not an official diagnosis, yet it's something I encounter almost daily. Maureen Warbach is the owner of Urban Wellness Counseling in Chicago and also the founder of the Group Practice Exchange, a membership program for group practice owners. Even though she has a multi-million-dollar practice, Maureen is intimately familiar with therapist guilt. When I first started my practice, she told me I had this immense sense of guilt around charging my full fee. Even though it's been close to 10 years, I can still remember my lowest rate client. I charged her $35 per session, mostly out of fear that I would increase her financial stress as a single parent. Early on, I had a hard time aligning my need to be able to afford to live and even thrive with my duty to support my clients' mental health, she continued. How could I be a good therapist if I was part of the problem? It took some time for me to fully accept that I deserve to be paid well for the work I do. It can be true that clients have financial stress, but that doesn't mean that we as therapists are causing it. Just because the clients have financial stress doesn't mean that I must have that in common with them. Maureen admits that she's had to contend with several waves of guilt at different points in her career. When she established her group practice, she felt guilt around the various policies and procedures she put in place, like reduced rates and cancellation fees. That caused her to overpay her staff at times at the detriment of the business and growth. In grad school, we learned nothing about running a business or managing finances, Maureen said. The narrative was that the field of mental health is not about the money, it's about helping people. So as new therapists, we go out into the world and make almost nothing. It's no wonder successful group practice owners feel guilty being financially successful and can sometimes feel like it wasn't deserved or earned. When I met Angel Koenig to talk about her journey as a practice owner, she described therapist guilt a little differently. We go into this field to really help people, to see people through their hurt and their pain. To have to add what we see as a financial burden to that, I think it feels like it can take away from us really being there for them, for the relationship. Ernesto Segismundo, leadership coach and owner of CAV Family Therapy in California and Nevada, has been open with the mental health community about his difficult relationship with money. When I interviewed him for the book, he explained his therapist guilt like this. In grad school, we were taught to do counseling out of the goodness of our heart and without considering money. And when you say to a suicidal client, my fee is $175, it goes into morality issues for many of us. We feel like we're responsible for helping the client. We as therapists feel like the client is thinking, I'm depressed, my life is falling apart, and you're going to charge me $175 to put this together? What the heck? Therapist guilt pushes my clients to offer too many sliding scale slots. It causes clinicians not to charge the late cancellation fee that is clearly stated in their paperwork. It allows counselors to trample all over their own boundaries and schedule a client in need at a time that doesn't work for them. The guilt can be insidious and all-consuming. So there's a strong sense of obligation that we have to give, Ernesto continued. We have to take care of the community, and there's a big responsibility to make these life changes to help our clients have a better life. But there's guilt, a therapist guilt that never quite goes away. Why do I bring this up? Because I want you to look that big, hairy guilt right in the eyes and tell it to back off. You are a helper, and you deserve to make a good living just as much or even more than any other profession. You are an amazing and talented, and you deserve to get paid for the healing work your work brings to the world. I find it fascinating that this type of guilt doesn't seem to exist in other healthcare professions. You won't see a spinal surgeon reduce their rates because the patient can't afford them. So let's just admit that the desire to help others that led you to a profession in mental health might be doing you a disservice when it comes to the financial side of private practice.
I love that. That's such a good open. You've so set up the pain points and what's behind it and why it's difficult to have these conversations. You did that expertly. So I'm curious, you talked about in that excerpt, I'm not a therapist. So what is it about therapists that made you want to focus your work on them and write a book for them?
Well, before writing the book, my team and I have been specialized in working with therapists for years already, right? So that has always been our main area of focus. What I love about working with therapists, they're highly educated, very knowledgeable in other areas, but just not in finance and accounting, right? They don't necessarily know how to run a business, but they were very thirsty for the knowledge, wanted to understand what was going on in their business, but also were really good at taking the advice that we were giving them and implementing that in their practice. So they actually want to know and do something about it, whereas a lot of other industries don't necessarily want that. So I really like that long-term relationship. I like following someone for years and years and being able to see their practice just transform under my eyes. And when someone takes your advice and does really well, that feels really good. And so selfishly, that's the part that I love about serving this industry.
So you have a lot of success stories and you have shared them in the book, but is there anyone that's any examples that are gratifying to you about, people who apply the same methodologies that you share in the book and had some good results?
Well, what I love about Profit First is that when you're sharing with a practice owner, here's the system, here's the financial framework that we know works well, right? We have a proven track record. We know this can work really well. I love that it takes nothing away from anyone else. It's not like we're saying, hey, take these clients that were someone else's, take these clients over here, right? It's just sharing is caring in the sense where we're just saying, if you know what is going to work and what's not, how much you can afford to spend on various categories, how much you should pay your clinicians, that is setting your practice up for success. And so we've seen sometimes people come to us at a point of real financial difficulty where those are not easy turnaround situations, but we have seen many, many, many times if the business owner is willing to do the work, being able to go from a situation where there's just a couple dollars in the bank account of the business after payroll is run. And that's just stressful and hard. And there's a lot of work that has to go into that, but to a place where the owner is paying themselves, they're paying themselves well, regularly, their team is happy. You could just kind of see the stress melt from their shoulders over many months, but it's a really great place to be. And it's really wonderful to be able to share that with our clients too.
Do you find that when your clients, and now it'll be readers too, implement this, that they have better therapeutic relationships, meaning they aren't as stressed, or so it's easier for them to do their work?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're not making money, and I think this can apply to most businesses, there's a point where resentment starts to creep in, right? And sometimes that is going to be resentment towards the business of how come I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, and I have nothing to show? I have no retirement fund. I'm still struggling. Then there's resentment for the business. If you're at a point where you realize, okay, maybe I'm paying some team members way too much, where we're not able to cover overhead, there's no profit margin, then there can be resentment towards those team members. And that just creates a lot of friction in that relationship between the owner and their team. And that's not a positive situation for anyone.
Yeah, and I'm sure it trickles down into every area.
Yeah.
So this next excerpt is a continuation of the previous excerpt. Yes? We're just going to keep
Yes.
reading?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's also in chapter 1.
Okay, awesome. Let's hear this next excerpt.
Okay. Other than at the very early stages of private practice, money problems for therapists occur when one of two things happen: when sessions slow down and when sessions speed up. When sessions slow down, you're facing a bunch of no-shows, or worse, crickets on the phone. Rent is due, but cash isn't coming in. Money problems can also occur when sessions speed up. As the pace of business moves faster, like an out-of-control merry-go-round, it's harder to slow things down. Your payroll costs increase steadily, you need more space, you're forced to throw money at problems to plug holes in what feels like a sinking ship. As a business grows, it's normal for expenses to grow as well, but when things are out of control, expenses can grow exponentially faster than income. It's a dangerous cycle to chase the next insurance deposit to pay last month's expenses. You don't need to be stuck living deposit to deposit. It's stressful and it's not sustainable. I'm certain that you are an incredible clinician. I also know that unless you're a rare unicorn, there's a good chance that you haven't taken a single accounting course in your life. You haven't learned how to manage the money in your business, and without money, your business simply cannot survive. It might feel like your practice is an out-of-control runaway train sometimes, and you're just along for the ride. I want you to know that you and your business can have your happily ever after. Whether your revenue is $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, or $100 million each year, your practice can be a money-generating vehicle for you and your team to go change the world. What I'm about to share with you will make your business profitable quickly and permanently. We're going to face your financials together and make your business behave. The bigger the business, the bigger the impact. At the same time, the bigger the problems. Large businesses aren't always profitable. More growth won't necessarily fix a model that isn't working or profitable. You can't grow your way out of a problem. Growing a profitable practice will almost always mean more profit. With profit built in, there's no need for loans, investors, or to just keep growing. If you grow if you want to, but you can stay exactly where you are if you prefer, and you make a profit no matter what. I want to dispel the myth that top-line revenue is the only thing that matters. The amount of money coming into the business, the gross revenue, gross income, or top line, is often used as a vanity metric. Ooh, look at me, I have $1 million practice. Just kidding, you wouldn't do that. As someone who has seen the financials of hundreds of private practices, I can assure you that things aren't always what they seem. Just because a practice looks successful doesn't mean that it is, and sometimes the practices that look small and modest on the outside have the best profit margins. There are plenty of $250,000 per year practices with more profit than $1 million per year practice. There are also plenty of $1 million a year practices whose owners work much less than the owners of a $250,000 a year practice. Ultimately, having $1 million practice means nothing if you're broke. With the profit first system in place, you'll be able to focus on the profit so that if you choose to scale, your profit will scale with you. Finite resources. Starting a therapy practice can be fairly inexpensive, especially when compared to other medical specialties like radiology or dentistry that require some significant investments. Those fancy X-ray machines cost more than $50,000, yet you could start a therapy practice with little more than a laptop, a couch, and a chair if you want to keep costs to a minimum. Unfortunately, though, therapy isn't valued by insurance companies the way other specialties are. In many medical specialties, a lower level technician can do most of the work while the doctor just pops in for a few minutes. With the right scheduler, a dentist can see around 3 to 6 patients each hour. In therapy, you're 100% present for your client for the 45, 50, or 60 minutes you are scheduled with them. No technician, no breaks, no double booking. The earning opportunity for a solo practice owner with no team members is finite. There are only so many hours in the day. So other than seeing more clients, the only way to increase your revenue without hiring is to drop panels, go private pay, and raise your rates. What if instead you considered how your practice could become more profitable? What if instead of just doing more, you could get more done with the resources you already have? Traditional accounting is killing your practice. Here's the thing, your clients need your practice to be profitable. And to be profitable, you must take your profit first. It is simply too important to wait for a future milestone. If you're worrying about money, you're not the best clinician you could be. You might be familiar with the traditional accounting equation. Income minus expenses equals profit. If you manage your practice like most entrepreneurs, you'll start with income, then subtract your business expenses like rent, payroll, office supplies, software, and what's left is profit. From that profit, you pay yourself, pay taxes, and if you're lucky, have money left over. That's what you get to take home. But let's be honest, you deserve better than leftovers. The traditional accounting method makes logical sense, but humans tend to make financial decisions based on emotion much more than logic. As logical as I tend to be, especially around money, I have made some questionable purchases in my life based on emotion. Shortly after the birth of my first child, I convinced myself that I deserved a push present. I picked out a beautiful diamond band and I mentioned it to my husband regularly. When I didn't receive the ring a few weeks later, I asked him about it. He responded, "It's beautiful, but it sounds like we can't really afford it." I have always managed the money in our household, and it turns out that my husband had been listening when I told him we need to tighten our belts after the baby's arrival. He was right. Our budget had very little wiggle room. Still, I responded with the suggestion that we accept a 0% credit card offer. I probably also mentioned the meager amount we had in the savings account. I really wanted the ring, and I was willing to bend reality to get it. Eventually, I did get it, but in hindsight, the purchase didn't make sense. Even though my logical brain usually prevails, my emotional pull to spend was stronger. You know that feeling you get when you look at your bank balance, the one that falls somewhere in the spectrum of, "Oh my God, I'm rich," or, "Oh crap, that's not good." It stirs something in you and evokes your emotions in a way a financial report just can't. Another issue with the traditional accounting equation is that it's not a true measure of cash. Many business owners learn the hard way that showing a profit on their profit and loss doesn't necessarily mean there's any cash in the bank. While the report lists income, expenses, and profit, it doesn't show the full picture. So many times I've sat in front of a client during a monthly or quarterly video meeting and heard, "Julie, I just don't get it. If my business generated that much profit, where is it? My bank account doesn't have this much money in it." And that's because a P&L only shows a portion of what's going on in the business. It doesn't show owner's draws, loan principal payments, asset purchases, or other transactions that appear on the balance sheet. The P&L report might show a profit, but that doesn't always mean there's any money left. When you're looking at your bank balance and doing bank balance bookkeeping, you're not getting the full scope of what's going on in your business. In an ideal world, you'd be looking at your profit and loss and balance sheet alongside your bank balance, but years of experience have taught me that no one does. So instead of tricking you into being a sophisticated financial analyst or trying to change the way you behave, we can use this behavior as an advantage. This is the magic of the Profit First system. If you've never read the original Profit First, in the book, Mike Michalowicz flips the accounting formula most people use. The traditional formula is income minus expenses equals profit, and the Profit First formula is income minus profit equals expenses. You'll learn more about why this works so well in the pages to come. For now, just know that this simple switch can change everything for your business. Profit First is a system that will instantly tell you how your practice is doing without having to even look at your financial reports or do complicated calculations. It will show you how much you can spend in each area of your business. It will show you how much must be reserved for taxes and for yourself. The Profit First system will meet you exactly where you are and won't require you to change your natural behavior. Instead, it will work with it. Profit First will allow your practice to be profitable at any size. Instead of focusing only on the money coming into the practice, you'll also focus on how much you get to take home. You don't have to feel like the only way to increase your profit is to see more clients. If you don't want to grow, you don't have to, and you can still take your profit first. Profit is not a dirty word. I have a chip on my shoulder about profit first. When Layla told me she was initially turned off by the title of the book, she explained that it was because she thought it would ask her to put profit above people. It seemed incredibly selfish to me, she explained, and not aligned with my values. The funny thing is, Layla did want some help with managing her money so she could grow her practice. Once she listened to how other colleagues were implementing Profit First and heard them describe the system, she realized she may have had it all wrong. Layla decided to give the book a chance and committed to reading only one chapter to see what all the fuss was about. That's how she started to fall in love with the Profit First system. After always paying her expenses first and taking home what was left, the idea of flipping the script and figuring out what she needed in terms of profit was a revelation. Instead of thinking, oh, well, I guess this is all I have left, so I'll just have to make do, she could start with her needs. There was peace around that shift for her, and it slowly started replacing her scarcity mindset with an abundance mindset. Layla said, I'm still working hard, but Profit First is almost like putting a budget and measures around the expenses of the business. For example, what I have left to spend on supplies. And I know I can get really creative on that. Setting up a budget had felt so restrictive, but the truth is, it freed her. It gave her permission to pay herself. For Layla, one of the big challenges of implementing Profit First was getting into the mindset shift that her business can make a difference, it can serve the community, and it can provide for people's livelihoods, but it can and should also take care of her. She started her business to have a positive social impact on her community and make a difference, as opposed to make money. She has come to the realization that having a profitable practice allows her to have a greater impact on the community. She can achieve her goals, the goals of her family and her life, and that feels really good. That did not feel quite as accessible or justifiable before. Profit First gave Layla the permission to pay herself and consider her own family's needs in addition to the business's needs, and that's a huge win. As much as it might hurt to admit it, you're not showing up with integrity with your clients if you're not addressing your own relationship with money. It seems like burnout causes therapists to leave the field faster than new therapists enter it. Doing the work of a clinician comes at such a high emotional cost. It doesn't need to come at a high financial cost as well. Your practice can not just be successful, but also truly sustainable and life-giving. Therapists shouldn't need to carry a caseload of 95 clients, see 40 sessions a week, and make just enough to survive. With a profitable practice, owners can provide a healthy environment for their clinicians and themselves so that they can do their work long-term, keep coming back to it, and stay in love with it. That's where truth and idealism come together.
Yes, you've done such an expert job of connecting and helping people see what the problem is and stating your core message and proving it and dealing with the immediate pushback of it and all of it. It just did a beautiful job. We have, before we close tonight, we also have a little epilogue on Stacy, just a little short 5-minute reading. But I want to take a moment to ask you some authory questions now.
Ooh.
So your book comes out tomorrow. Laura's been putting it in the chat. If it fits your budget, everyone, we'd love for you to get a copy of Julie's book. If you've already purchased a copy of Julie's book, because she did some great pre-order campaigns, maybe you know someone else who needs it. So we always, if it fits your budget, buy it. And then if you've already done it, tomorrow we'd love for you to log on to Amazon, take about 2 minutes, and leave Julie an Amazon review. It's don't leave one unless it's going to be at least 4 stars. So we're just going to assume it's a minimum of 4 stars that you're going to give Julie's book. I want to just take a brief moment because this comes up a lot. It's not time consuming or difficult to write an Amazon review. You just go to the listing, click on leave a review down toward the bottom. You don't even have to have proof of purchase. In the subject matter, write something good, like, game changer, mandatory reading, a must read, chapter 5 changed my life, whatever it is. And then remember, you can just write a few sentences. It's great if you want to write something more, but you don't have to write a perfect review. You just have to say, this is how it was helpful to me. And I think sometimes people get a little nervous about writing these reviews. I actually still have 3 friends. My book came out last year in May. I have 3 friends who are still working on it. So, because they're afraid of what I'm going to think about the review. If you're an author, we don't actually care. Like, we're thrilled to read it, but we just really need the Amazon review. And the reason is, this is currency for authors. This is how we get more sales, and it's how we get opportunities. So I just want to take a pause. If you've already purchased Julie's book, if you'll please just take 2 minutes and leave a review tomorrow, that will be really helpful. So Julie, tomorrow's your big day. I want to talk about what's been surprising about your journey as an author.
Before we started recording, I told you I expected to, come in and write the book in a very linear way. I thought I would just start at the beginning and write it like in one fell swoop, right? Just straight through. And now I realize that was completely crazy and not at all what happened. I was surprised by how much work was to be done once I was finished writing, right? In some ways, it felt like it just began. And that was also work that was outside of my comfort zone, because it almost felt comfortable to be behind the scenes, behind the computer writing. But then the work of like getting the word out is very vulnerable, right? You're saying like, I made this thing and I hope you like this book, and will you please read it and talk about it? And so I had to reach out to a lot of people, and I've a lot of people that I knew already, but some that I didn't. And that was a humbling experience, certainly. And it was a lot of fun to do a lot of podcasts and webinars and all that fun stuff. But I don't think I knew how much outreach I would have to do, but I'm glad I did.
So what are some skills you have now that you didn't have before?
I think I've found figured out some good ways to weave my book into many different types of conversation, right? Like, funny you should say that. I have a chapter on this in my book, right? Where in a way that doesn't feel too salesy, because I feel like I'm not a salesy kind of person, but what I've learned from you is that even if you have something great, if you don't tell anyone about it, then no one will buy it, right? No one will see it. So even though it might feel uncomfortable at times, I have to put myself out there and just say, yes, I cover this in chapter whatever, and you should go read it. So that's
Yes.
one of the skills I've learned that I did not have before.
So, when students come into my workshop, I always refer to you as authors from day one, greet you that way. All of my correspondence is that way. That's how I communicate. Were you comfortable with that at first? Did you feel like you were an author?
No, I felt like a fraud, but I did it anyways. One of the things that you teach that has been so helpful for me is, don't wait for inspiration to come. You just show up and you sit down and you write. And so I still, to this day, I'm at pretty much every 6 a.m. writing sprints, unless I'm on vacation. And because there's always something to write. In the last few weeks and months, I've been writing marketing copy, or just whatever needed to be written. It was in the book itself. But yeah, just don't wait for the inspiration and get it out there. And I'm glad I did, because little bit by bit it just added up, and then it was the editing, and eventually it turned into what it is today, little step by step.
And do you feel like an author now?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. Because you've got other skills now, not just, saying this is my book and telling people about it, but you actually know how to write one now. You actually understand what's involved in it, and you have good instincts, and you know how to care for you have so many skills you didn't have when you first started.
Yeah. I'm excited for what this book will do too. Part of the reason to write it is I have an accounting firm, but it's felt for the last several years like, no matter how much I grow the firm, there are more people out there that need our help than we'll ever be able to work with directly. So this is a way that I can just kind of extend the net and help as many people as I can in the industry. And that feels really good.
So that you basically already almost answered it, but that leads to the question I ask at every Monday night reading, which is, what is the change you want to see in the world through your book? So more specifically, what do you hope for readers who read this book? What is it you want for them?
I would love for therapists to be unapologetic about making good money in their practice, making a good living. I think there's this harmful narrative in the industry that being a therapist should be a vow of poverty, and it often starts in grad schools with professors saying like, "Oh, you'll never make money doing this." And I think when you're a helper like that and someone in a position of power says that, you believe them. And I think there's probably some people who would have been great clinicians who opt out of the industry, or people who just never really truly step into the clinician or the practice owner that they could be because of that. And I think that's harmful. And we need therapists more than ever now. So I want them to succeed and do well.
I love that. Now, by the way, if anybody has a question for Julie about writing a book, about anything with her publishing journey, please go ahead and put it in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and explain to everybody if you're wondering. So Julie's book is Profit First for Therapists. It's a derivative of the book Profit First. And just in case anybody here is wondering, Julie has the rights to write the book Profit First for Therapists from Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, and Penguin Random House, the publisher of Profit First. So these derivative books is what they're called, could be, mostly just a rehash of Profit First, but I'm really proud of Julie because her book is 100% her content, not taken from the original. And I mean, definitely builds on those concepts, but tailor-made for her reader. Can you speak a little bit about how you thought about that, how you changed it to suit your readership?
There were a lot of places, as we were implementing Profit First with our clients, there were a lot of places where therapists were getting stuck. Like, this doesn't make sense, or it wasn't connecting. So I went a lot deeper in very specific areas so that it made sense. But also, chapter 1 is mostly about convincing therapists that they deserve to make money, right? And I feel like we had to start there, because sometimes if you start right with like, here's how you're going to do it, like, yeah, but I really just need to help people. So we kind of had to start in this place of like, hey, over here, you deserve to make a good living, and this is why, right? And really unpacking that so that by the time we get to the meat and potatoes, they can be like, okay, I can see this making sense for my practice and making sense for me. And so there's a lot of very specific, like industry specific tips, but I also included things that I knew they needed that just are not part of the Profit First framework, like compensation for team members or admins or leadership or scaling. Like, there's things that I just knew they were going to need, and that is not addressed in the original Profit First, because it has to be a lot more general. So I put the things I knew they needed in there, and I think that has worked out well.
Yeah, you have so much detailed content about growing a practice and expanding locations, which is common. And you also talk about student debt and just all of these things that are really specific to this reader. And I think authors can learn a lot from really thinking through what specifically does my reader need to understand that maybe another reader wouldn't necessarily need. So we have one more little excerpt that we'd love for you to read, but you also have a lot of personal stories in there. Can you share a little bit about what it was like for you to share personal aspects of your life in this book? Did you think you were going to do that when you first sat down to write it?
No, I really did not. I really did not. I thought I was going to just keep it very, very professional. But then the stories that kept coming to me were personal stories, and unpacking kind of my childhood and my relationship with money and where that came from. And also, as I was writing the book, I was a caregiver for my mom who passed away since of ALS. But in that moment, I was writing, I was caring, like that was just so front and center for me. I felt like I had no choice but to include those stories. Like it was just such a part of what I was going through at that time. And now that I've got a little bit of time behind me since losing my mom, I also, as I reread it, I feel like it's just a beautiful way to honor her and the lessons I've learned from her as well. So that's how I choose to kind of see this in the world. And so there's a lot of very, very personal stories about my childhood and my mom and her businesses and how she loved being an entrepreneur. But as vulnerable as that feels, I think I hope it will help someone.
I know it will. And I know it absolutely will. So we're going to do one short excerpt now, which is a follow-up to the Stacy story.
Yes. So we started with Stacy, and this is actually the closing, right? The end of the book where we recap with Stacy. Remember Stacy, my client who didn't have enough money for payroll? She first learned about Profit First at a conference where she sat in the audience and heard Mike Michalowicz speak. Earlier that day, she had chatted about her business with colleagues and told them it was doing great. She had 12 clinicians in 2 locations, and she carried on as if life was good. She told me, as I heard Mike speak, surrounded by people I knew, I felt like the biggest fraud ever. While I'd been pretending everything was fine, at that very moment, I had negative $4,000 in my bank account. Negative, below zero. I knew that I'd probably be getting another bounce payment notification by the end of the day. Stacy put on a brave face, but she was broke. She had been busting her tail day in and day out for more than 10 years and had nothing to show for it. She had a pile of unopened IRS letters on her desk, taunting her about the back taxes she owed, and her crappy marriage was draining every ounce of energy she had left. That fateful day when she heard Mike speak, Stacy decided she couldn't give up. She hadn't come this far to stop and quit, and she decided to give Profit First a try. A few weeks later, she gave me a call. I could tell that she was truly ready to make a change. When we started implementing Profit First, we quickly realized that Stacy's clinician compensation was too high. It was painful for her to sit across from her team and renegotiate their contracts. I thought I was going to die of shame, she told me, but she kept going. Fast forward 6 months, and payroll hadn't bounced once. There was enough in the tax account to make her quarterly estimated tax payment, and Stacy wasn't waking up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night worrying about money. There were lots of little tweaks and adjustments to make along the way. There still are every time a new location is added or another significant change happens in the practice. But for the first time since starting her business, Stacy and her now ex-husband no longer owe any back taxes. Last year was the first year she fully funded her 401k. She is paying cash for her daughter's college education and has enough money to replace her 9-year-old car and take a trip when she wants to. Stacy's practice is finally serving her. At the same time, it's serving her team. At a recent meeting, she shared a text message she'd just received from a team member. I don't want to sound corny, but I just want you to know that I love working here and I love the people I work with. Thank you for trusting me and hiring me. As tears filled Stacy's eyes, I could see how proud she is of what she's accomplished. I can't help but imagine how different her life would be today had she not decided to take the leap. Then I think of all the clients of my firm whose businesses and lives are changed forever thanks to Profit First. And I can't help but think that if my mother had had the opportunity to use Profit First for the sewing shop, the phone book, or any of the businesses in between, she would have had a fighting chance at making a living doing what she loved. It's not too late for you. I truly know that Profit First can change the trajectory of your life if you'll let it, and I hope you do.
Yay, I love it. I'm so glad we had time to read that. I'm so glad.
Me too.
Yeah. We're so proud of you, Julie. I'm so proud of you showing up day after day, sprint after sprint, trying to make your book the best it can be, and you did it. And tomorrow it's out in the world. Well, really in just a few hours, because once it hits midnight, everything turns over. We hope everybody, you've got a lot of launch events happening. You can go to, let's see, I think Laura's put it in the chat to see where you can go participate in some of those launch events. I know you have bonuses. I will be participating in your launch event tomorrow. And again, if everybody, if it fits your budget, and you can pick up a copy that you can pass on to someone, even if you're not a therapist, that would be great. Leave a review. Julie, we could not be more proud of you. We are so thrilled for you. Congratulations on your
I must say thank you to you, AJ, for dragging me along this whole process, and Laura for being the best cheerleader out there, and for everyone I've been on a sprint on. Thank you for the support. I just really appreciate it so much.
Well, of course, and once you're part of the author community, that's it. It's Hotel California. You can never leave. Congratulations! It's a major accomplishment. I hope you have the biggest cake ever, and a huge celebration, and then a big long nap.
Yes, right. There will be cake tomorrow, or so Abby tells me.
Cake. We want pictures of cake. We want celebratory cake. Everybody, this will be up on YouTube if you want to refer back to it. Julie, we're so thrilled for you. We've got another Monday night reading coming next month, and we hope you can make it for that. Everybody have a great evening, and congrats again, Julie.
Thank you,
everyone.